My parents kicked my 16-year-old sister out with trash bags so I could use her room. When I tried to comfort her, they laughed and said, "She's dead weight." I stayed silent because I knew exactly what I was about to do, and my parents were not going to like it. Me and my parents have always hated my younger sister Harper. When she was a baby, she cried so much more than I ever did, and she felt like the dead weight of the family. But it wasn't always like this. When we were children, I always loved her. Whenever she banged her head against the living room table, I would be the one to comfort her while she cried. Or when she won an award at school, I'd throw her up in the air and tell her how proud I was. But then my parents finally opened my eyes to how dumb I was being. Whenever Harper did something wrong, they would point and laugh at her until she cried to make sure she never did it again. And whenever they tried to help me with anything, they'd remind me that I don't want to end up like Harper. But I guess I was stubborn because I still wanted to protect her at all costs. But my parents made sure to beat this out of me. Whenever I was nice to her, they'd pull me aside and tell me I was ruining their parenting methods, that I was a bad person, and would be sent away if I kept being such a terrible role model. From there, we stopped celebrating her birthday, constantly reminded her how annoying she was, how she needed to be humble and stop being selfish. And anytime I felt guilt rise in my chest, I reminded myself of my parents' words, how I was doing the best thing for Harper. And for her 16th birthday, they actually got her a gift, except it wasn't for her, it was for me. They kicked her out. You see, I was 8 months pregnant and I wanted her bedroom for the newborn baby. Plus, our aunt was willing to take her in, so I figured it was a no-brainer. I watched as she tried not to cry while throwing all her belongings into bin bags. Some part of me was even happy for her. Maybe she could find some place where she felt like she belonged. My boyfriend moved in after that, and he spent the next few weeks working and building our future daughter's bedroom. My labor was smooth, no complications. The problems came after I brought Lily home, because my mom made home-cooked dinners for us every day, making sure they were filled with nutrients to replenish my body after giving birth. My husband was giving me foot massages, and my dad was working overtime for Lily. It was the life I always wanted to give her, until she turned 3. She was walking around the living room, rearranging the furniture when she banged her head against the wooden table, just as Harper did all those years ago. I went over to comfort her and make sure she was okay, and that's when my mom lunged forward to separate us. "Let her cry by herself. We have to toughen her up." I pushed her off of me and brought my baby girl into my bedroom to cradle her. As I looked into her eyes, I thought of Harper, how I had once cradled her in the exact same way. I felt the familiar sense of guilt creep into my chest, but this time, I couldn't push it away. I waited for Lily to fall asleep before sneaking into the bathroom and letting myself fall apart. I had ruined her childhood, killed the light in her heart, made her think love should be earned instead of freely, all because I was scared, all in the name of my parents' approval. I didn't even think before taking my iPhone out of my pocket and calling her. We hadn't even talked since she got kicked out, and to my surprise, she answered straight away. "Harper, I'm so sorry. Horrible sister." By this point, my hands were trembling and I was still in tears. I honestly expected her to just hang up and block me, but she didn't. "Mila, it's okay. I never blamed you." She was only 20, but her tone was so mature, forgiving, so much so that I cried even harder, and I asked if she wanted to meet Lily. "Yes!" she yelled, that childish spark coming out again. I immediately booked an Uber to hers, and we spent the entire evening crying and laughing together, like we were family again. When I went home that night, I told my parents everything. I expected them to be happy that the family was fixing itself. Instead, they got mad, like really mad. "Mila, didn't we talk about this?" my mom asked. Her tone was condescending and passive-aggressive. When I glanced over at my dad, his fist was on the table, clenched so hard that his knuckles were white. But this time, I wasn't scared. "Harper is my sister. She's your daughter. What the F is wrong with you?" All my guilt had suddenly shifted to anger, and I had no empathy left. My mom's eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed to bitter slits. "If Harper is so perfect, go live with her. See how far her softness gets you." She scoffed like I was the biggest idiot in the world. "Okay," I said with a smile. I felt their eyes staring at me as I walked upstairs to pack. In the next 2 hours, I was waiting for our aunt to pick me up in her van. The house was nice. There were pictures of my aunt and Harper all over the walls. It had this homey feeling I had never experienced before, and my boyfriend fit right in too. But of course, with my parents, nothing good ever lasts. And the next day, I woke up to a knock at the door. It wasn't my parents. It was CPS. My heart dropped into my stomach. Someone had called in a complaint about Lily being neglected, and I knew exactly who had made that call. I stood frozen in the hallway, watching as the CPS worker introduced herself. This couldn't be happening. I had finally done the right thing, finally escaped, and now they were trying to take my daughter away? My mind raced with panic as I stepped forward, trying to keep my voice steady as I explained who I was. The CPS worker looked at me with practiced neutrality. "We received a concerning report about the welfare of a child named Lily," she said, glancing down at her clipboard. "Are you her mother?" I nodded, feeling like I might throw up. "Yes, she's my daughter. She's perfectly fine. We just moved here yesterday." My aunt stepped in, putting her arm around my shoulders. "There must be some misunderstanding. Mila is an excellent mother, and we have plenty of space and resources here for both her and Lily." The worker asked to see Lily, who was still sleeping peacefully in the guest room. As we walked there, I felt like my legs might give out. This had to be my parents' doing. They couldn't stand losing control over me, so they were willing to risk having my daughter taken away. The CPS worker followed me into the guest room where Lily was just starting to stir. She rubbed her eyes and looked confused at the stranger in the doorway. I quickly went to her side, sitting on the edge of the bed and pulling her into a hug. "Hey, sweetie, did you have a good sleep?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the panic coursing through me. The worker introduced herself to Lily as Ms. Janine and asked if she could talk to her for a few minutes. I reluctantly stepped back, every instinct screaming at me to grab Lily and run, but I knew that would only make things worse. Janine asked Lily some basic questions: if she was hungry, if she liked staying at her aunt's house, if she missed her old home. Lily, being 3 and completely oblivious to the tension in the room, chatted happily about the pancakes she wanted for breakfast and the cat she'd seen in the window. I stood there with my arms crossed so tight I was practically hugging myself, trying not to look as terrified as I felt. After about 15 minutes, Janine asked to speak with me privately. Harper offered to make Lily breakfast, and I followed the CPS worker to the living room, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Mrs. Collins, I'll be direct with you," Janine said once we were seated. "We received a report claiming you abruptly removed your daughter from her home environment, that you're emotionally unstable, and that this household isn't equipped to care for a child." I couldn't help it. I laughed. It was either that or cry. "Let me guess. My parents called you." Janine's expression remained neutral. "I can't disclose who who made the report. Look, I know how this looks, I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. But my parents, they're not good people. They emotionally abused my sister for years. I helped them do it because I was scared. Now they're starting to do the same thing to my daughter, and I couldn't let that happen. Harper appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. I can confirm everything she's saying. Our parents kicked me out on my 16th birthday so Mila could use my bedroom for her baby. They've been manipulating her for years. Our aunt joined us too, explaining how she'd taken Harper in 4 years ago and the state she'd been in, depressed, anxious, barely speaking, how she'd slowly helped her rebuild her confidence and sense of self-worth. Janine listened, taking notes occasionally. I could tell she was trying to figure out if this was a legitimate case of a mother protecting her child or if my parents' claims had merit. I understand your concerns, she finally said, but I still need to complete my assessment. I'll need to see where Lily will be sleeping, check that you have adequate food and supplies for her, and schedule a follow-up visit in a week. I nodded, relief washing over me. At least she wasn't taking Lily away on the spot. We showed her around the house, including the guest room where my aunt had already set up a small toddler bed for Lily. The kitchen was well stocked, and Lily was happily eating pancakes at the table, completely unaware of the drama unfolding around her. Before leaving, Janine handed me her card. If you need anything, or if your situation changes, please call me directly. And just so you know, we take all reports seriously, but we also recognize that sometimes these calls can be motivated by factors other than genuine concern for a child's welfare. The slight raise of her eyebrow told me she'd already figured out what was really going on. I thanked her, and as soon as the door closed behind her, I collapsed onto the couch, shaking. They're not going to stop, I whispered. They're going to keep coming after us. Harper sat next to me, putting her arm around my shoulders. Then we'll be ready for them. We're not alone anymore, Mila. I spent the next few days in a constant state of anxiety, jumping every time the phone rang or someone knocked on the door. My boyfriend Tyler was amazing through it all. He went back to my parents' house to get the rest of our stuff while I stayed with Lily. He said my parents were cold but didn't try to stop him. That made me even more nervous. It meant they were planning something else. I was right to be worried. 3 days after the CPS visit, I got a text from my mom. We need to talk. Come alone. It's about Lily's future. I showed the text to Harper and my aunt. They both immediately said I shouldn't go, that it was obviously a trap. But I knew my parents. They wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted. Maybe if I talked to them face to face, I could make them understand that this harassment had to end. I'll go with you, Tyler offered. You don't have to face them alone. I shook my head. They said to come alone. If I bring you, they'll just refuse to talk. After much debate, we compromised. I would meet my parents at a coffee shop, neutral territory with witnesses. Tyler would sit at another table nearby, close enough to intervene if needed, but far enough that my parents wouldn't spot him immediately. The next day, I walked into the coffee shop, my stomach in knots. My parents were already there, sitting at a corner table. My mom's face was set in that fake smile she used when she wanted something, while my dad looked like he was barely containing his anger. Mila, sweetie, my mom said as I sat down. We've been so worried about you. I cut right to the chase. Did you call CPS on me? My dad leaned forward. We did what any concerned grandparents would do. You took our granddaughter and ran off to live with your failure of a sister. Harper isn't a failure, I said through gritted teeth, and I didn't run off. I removed my daughter from a toxic environment. My mom reached across the table trying to take my hand. I pulled back. Honey, we know you're going through something right now. Postpartum depression can last for years, you know. We just want what's best for Lily. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Lily is 3. This isn't postpartum anything, and what's best for her is not being raised the way you raised Harper. We raised you too, my dad snapped, and you turned out fine. Did I? Because I stood by while you emotionally tortured my sister for years. I'd say that's pretty effed up. My mom's fake smile faltered. Watch your language, young lady. This attitude is exactly why we're concerned about Lily. What do you want from me? I asked, exhausted already. Why am I here? They exchanged a look, and then my mom's voice dropped to a whisper. Come home, Mila. Bring Lily home. We'll forget this little episode. We won't even mention Harper again if that's what you want. And if I don't, my dad's expression hardened. Then we'll do whatever it takes to protect our granddaughter. We have resources you don't. We can make things very difficult for you. Are you threatening to try to take my daughter? We're offering you a choice, my mom said smoothly. Come home where you belong, or face the consequences of your actions. I stood up so fast my chair nearly toppled over. Lily is my daughter, not yours. Stay away from us. As I turned to leave, my dad called after me. Think carefully, Mila. You're making a mistake you can't undo. I walked out of the coffee shop with Tyler right behind me. Once we were in the car, I broke down completely. They weren't just trying to control me anymore. They were threatening to take my child. And the worst part was, I knew they meant it. When we got back to my aunt's house, I told everyone what had happened. Harper looked scared, but my aunt was furious. They can't just take Lily from you, she insisted. You're her mother. You haven't done anything wrong. But they have money, I said. They have connections. What if they find some judge who believes them? What if they convince people I'm unstable? We decided to be proactive. The next day, I called Janine from CPS and told her about the meeting. She seemed concerned and suggested I document everything. Every text, every call, every interaction with my parents. She also recommended I consult with a family law attorney, just to understand my rights. The attorney, a no-nonsense woman named Vanessa, listened to my story with a frown. Unfortunately, grandparents can petition for visitation rights in some cases, but taking custody from a fit parent is much harder. Still, if they're as manipulative as you say, we should prepare for anything. She helped me put together a file documenting the history of my parents' behavior, including Harper's statement about her treatment growing up. We also got statements from my aunt and Tyler about what they'd witnessed. It felt good to be doing something concrete, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that my parents were planning their next move. I was right to be worried. About a week after our coffee shop confrontation, Tyler started acting strange. He was distant, constantly checking his phone and making excuses to go out alone. At first, I thought he was just stressed about the situation with my parents, but then I noticed he'd been texting someone a lot. One night after Lily was asleep, I confronted him. What's going on with you? And don't say nothing because I know that's not true. He couldn't even look me in the eye. Your mom reached out to me. My blood ran cold. What? When? A few days ago. She said she's worried about you, that you're not thinking clearly. She showed me some stuff from when you were younger. What kind of stuff? He finally met my gaze. Letters you wrote, diary entries, things you said about Harper, about how you resented her, how you wanted her gone. I felt sick. Those were from when I was a teenager, when I was fully under my parents' influence. Those were from years ago, Tyler. I was practically brainwashed. I know, but the things you wrote, Mila, they were so cruel. Your mom said it shows a pattern of instability. She's worried you might turn on Lily the same way. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And you believe her? After everything I've told you about them? He shrugged helplessly. I don't know what to believe anymore. I just want what's best for Lily. And you think what's best for her is being around people who emotionally abuse children? Your parents said they never abused anyone. They said Harper was always difficult and you're rewriting history because you feel guilty for how you treated her. I stared at him. This man I thought I knew, who I thought loved me. You've been talking to them behind my back for days, haven't you? He didn't deny it. Instead, he said the words that shattered my world. I think we should go back, Mila. Your parents have offered to let us live with them rent-free while I finish my degree. They'll help with Lily. It makes sense. Get out, I whispered. What? Get out, I shouted, then immediately lowered my voice, remembering Lily was asleep. If you want to go back to them, fine, but you're not taking my daughter. The argument that followed was ugly. Tyler insisted he was thinking of Lily's future, that my parents could provide more stability than my aunt's guest room. I accused him of being bought off, of betraying me. Harper and my aunt heard the commotion and came to see what was happening, which only made Tyler more defensive. In the end, he left, but he made it clear this wasn't over. Think about what you're doing, Mila. Your parents are right, you're not thinking clearly. I spent that night curled up on the bathroom floor, trying to muffle my sobs so I wouldn't wake Lily. Harper sat with me, not saying much, just being there. She understood better than anyone what it felt like to be betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you. The next morning, I woke up to find Tyler had come back while I was asleep, not to apologize, but to take Lily. My aunt tried to stop him, but he had papers with him, claiming my parents had been granted temporary emergency custody due to concerns about my mental state. I lost it completely. I screamed, I cried, I threatened to call the police. Tyler looked torn, but insisted he was doing the right thing. It's just temporary, Mila, until you get help. Harper managed to pull me back as Tyler walked out with my daughter. We'll get her back, she promised fiercely. Those papers have to be fake. They couldn't have gotten a court order that fast. She was right. When we called Vanessa in a panic, she confirmed there was no way my parents could have legally obtained emergency custody without a hearing that I would have been notified about. The papers Tyler had were completely fabricated. This is actually good for us, Vanessa said grimly. They've committed fraud. We can use this. We filed a police report immediately. The officers were sympathetic, but said since Lily was with her father, it wasn't technically a kidnapping. They did, however, agree to accompany us to my parents' house to check on Lily's welfare. The look on my mother's face when she opened the door to find me standing there with 2 police officers was almost worth all the pain. Almost. Officers, what is this about? She asked in her most innocent voice. We're here about a custody dispute involving a minor child, one officer explained. We understand Lily Collins is currently at this residence. My mother tried to deny it at first, but then Tyler appeared in the hallway behind her, looking pale and confused. When the officers explained that the custody papers were fraudulent, his face fell. He genuinely believed my parents had legal authority. I didn't know, he kept saying as we left with Lily. They showed me court letterhead, a judge's signature. I thought it was real. I couldn't even look at him. All I cared about was getting Lily home safely. She was confused and clingy, asking why Daddy had taken her to Grandma's without me. It broke my heart all over again. That night, after Lily was finally asleep, I sat down with Harper, my aunt, and Vanessa to figure out our next steps. The police had warned my parents about the fraudulent documents, but Vanessa didn't think they'd face any serious legal consequences for it. They'll claim it was a misunderstanding, she said, but we can use this incident in family court to show they're willing to go to extreme lengths to interfere with your parenting. We decided to file for a restraining order against my parents and to formally document Tyler's role in taking Lily. I didn't want to punish him. He'd been manipulated too, but I needed legal protection. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, court filings, and constant anxiety. My parents tried to contact me multiple times, alternating between threats and pleas for reconciliation. I blocked their numbers and instructed my aunt to do the same. Tyler came by to apologize and to see Lily. I let him spend time with her. She adored her dad, and I wouldn't use her as a pawn the way my parents had, but I made it clear our relationship was over. He'd chosen my parents over me when it mattered most. There was no coming back from that. One evening, as I was helping my aunt prepare dinner, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mila? It was my dad's voice. Don't hang up, please. What do you want? I asked coldly. Your mother and I want to invite you and Lily to dinner, just to talk. We miss you. I almost laughed. After everything you've done? No way. We've been thinking about what you said, he continued as if I hadn't spoken. About Harper. Maybe we were too hard on her. We'd like to make amends. Something in his tone set off alarm bells. This sudden change of heart was too convenient, too calculated. I'll think about it, I said, not meaning it at all. After hanging up, I told Harper about the call. She looked as suspicious as I felt. They're planning something, she said. They never admit they're wrong unless they want something. We decided to ignore the invitation, but 2 days later, my mom showed up at my aunt's house unannounced. I was alone with Lily, Harper was at class, and my aunt was at work. I considered not answering the door, but my mom had already seen me through the window. Mila, please, she called through the door. I just want to talk. I'm alone, I promise. Against my better judgment, I opened the door a crack, keeping the chain on. You shouldn't be here. We have a restraining order pending. It hasn't been granted yet, she pointed out. Please, sweetheart, 5 minutes. I don't know why I let her in. Maybe some part of me still hoped she could change, that she could be the mother I needed. It was a mistake. As soon as she was inside, she started taking photos of the house with her phone. What are you doing? I demanded. Documenting the conditions my granddaughter is living in, she said coolly, all pretense of reconciliation gone. The judge will be very interested to see this. I grabbed for her phone. Get out, now. She pulled back, her face twisting with anger. You ungrateful little beach. After everything we've done for you, what have you ever done for me except teach me how to be cruel? How to hurt people I love? We made you strong, she hissed, unlike your pathetic sister. And now you're throwing it all away to be weak like her. I'd never hit anyone in my life, but in that moment, I wanted to slap her. Instead, I pulled out my own phone. I'm recording this conversation. Please continue explaining how you made me strong by teaching me to abuse my sister. Her eyes widened, and she lunged for my phone. I stepped back, keeping it out of her reach. Get out of this house right now, or I'm calling the police. For a tense moment, I thought she might actually attack me. Then she straightened her jacket and headed for the door. This isn't over, Mila. Your father and I will not let you ruin that child the way you're ruining yourself. After she left, I sank to the floor, shaking. Lily came over and put her little arms around me. Mommy sad? She asked, her forehead creased with worry. I hugged her tight. No, baby. Mommy's okay now. And I realized it was true. Every time I stood up to my parents, it got a little easier. Their power over me was breaking, piece by piece. When Harper and my aunt got home, I told them what had happened. Harper was furious, but my aunt looked thoughtful. You know, she said slowly, your parents have isolated themselves themselves from most of the family over the years. No one really knows what they're like behind closed doors. Maybe it's time to change that. Her suggestion was simple but brilliant. A family gathering. My aunt would host a barbecue and invite all the extended family, cousins, second cousins, my grandparents, everyone. My parents wouldn't dare show their true colors in front of the whole family, and if they declined to come, it would only make them look worse. The invitations went out the next day. My aunt framed it as a celebration of Harper's upcoming graduation and a chance for everyone to meet Lily. Most of the family accepted immediately. They'd been curious about the sudden rift but hadn't wanted to get involved. My parents, predictably, tried to get the event canceled. They called my aunt, claiming it was inappropriate to celebrate Harper when she'd caused so much family discord. When that didn't work, they tried to convince other family members not to attend. Their efforts backfired spectacularly. All they did was make people more curious about what was really going on. By the time the barbecue rolled around, nearly every member of our extended family had confirmed they were coming, including, surprisingly, my parents. The day of the gathering, I was a nervous wreck. Harper helped me get Lily ready, dressing her in a cute yellow sundress that made her look like a tiny sunbeam. "It's going to be okay," Harper assured me. "We're not alone anymore." As guests started arriving, I was overwhelmed by the warmth and genuine interest they showed in both me and Harper. Many of them hadn't seen Harper since she was a child, and were amazed at the confident young woman she'd become. They cooed over Lily, who basked in the attention. My parents arrived last, walking into the backyard like they owned the place. My mom had that plastic smile plastered on her face, while my dad looked like he was attending a funeral rather than a family barbecue. For the first hour or so, everything was surprisingly civil. My parents kept their distance from me and Harper, focusing instead on playing the role of doting grandparents to Lily. I watched them like a hawk, ready to intervene at the slightest hint of manipulation. The breaking point came during dinner. My cousin Grace asked Harper about her psychology studies, and Harper mentioned her interest in researching family dynamics and emotional abuse. "What would you know about emotional abuse?" my mom asked with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "You've been coddled your whole life." The table went quiet. Harper looked at me, and I nodded slightly. It was time for the truth. "Actually," Harper said calmly, "I spent most of my childhood being told I was worthless, annoying, and unwanted. On my 16th birthday, I was kicked out of the house so Mila could use my bedroom for her baby. You could have heard a pin drop. My grandmother's fork clattered against her plate." "Is this true?" she asked, looking directly at my parents. My dad tried to laugh it off. Harper always had a flair for the dramatic. "We simply suggested she might be happier living with her aunt during her rebellious phase." "That's not what happened," I said, finding my voice. "They gave her garbage bags to pack her things. They told her it was a no-brainer to get rid of her because I needed the space." What followed was like lancing a boil that had been festering for years. Once Harper and I started talking, we couldn't stop. We told them everything. The mockery, the constant criticism, the way they'd pitted us against each other, how they'd recently fabricated court documents to try to take Lily away from me. My parents' faces grew darker with each revelation. They tried to interrupt, to dismiss our claims as exaggerations, but other family members shushed them. "Let them speak," my grandfather said firmly. Finally, when we'd said our piece, all eyes turned to my parents. My mom's mask of pleasantness had completely crumbled. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "We gave these girls everything. We pushed them to be their best. If Harper was too sensitive to handle proper parenting, that's hardly our fault." "Proper parenting?" my aunt echoed incredulously. "Is that what you call what you did to these girls?" My dad stood up abruptly. "We don't have to listen to this. Come on, Diane." But my mom wasn't done. She pointed at me, her fingers shaking with rage. "You think you're so perfect now, don't you? Playing the victim. But I remember how you treated your sister, the things you said and did. You were worse than we ever were. Because you taught me to be," I shouted back, tears streaming down my face. "I was a child. I trusted you to show me what was right." The argument escalated quickly. My mom started bringing up ancient history, twisting events to make herself the victim. My dad alternated between cold silence and explosive anger. At one point, he slammed his fist on the table so hard that Lily started crying. That was the final straw for most of the family. My grandmother stood up, her tiny frame somehow imposing as she faced down my parents. "I've heard enough," she said quietly. "I don't know these people you've become, but they're not the children I raised." One by one, our relatives made it clear whose side they were on. My cousin offered Harper a place to stay during semester breaks. My uncle promised to help me find a more permanent housing solution. My grandfather pulled me aside to say he'd be setting up college funds for both Lily and any future education Harper might pursue. My parents left in a fury of slammed doors and squealing tires. As the dust settled, I felt lighter than I had in years. The truth was finally out, and we weren't alone anymore. That night, after everyone had gone home and Lily was asleep, Harper and I sat on the porch swing, looking at the stars. "Do you think they'll ever change?" she asked softly. I thought about it for a long moment. "I don't know, maybe someday, but I'm not waiting around for it anymore." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Me neither." The next morning, I woke up to a text from Tyler. He'd heard about what happened at the barbecue. News travels fast in families, and wanted to talk. I agreed to meet him at a park where Lily could play while we talked. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. "I'm so sorry," he said as soon as he saw me. "I should have trusted you. I should have seen through your parents." I watched Lily climbing on the playground equipment, her face lit up with joy. "Yes, you should have. Is there any chance? Can we try again? For Lily's sake?" I thought about all we'd been through, all I'd learned about standing up for myself and those I loved. "I don't know, Tyler. I need time, and things would have to be different." He nodded, accepting this without argument. It was a start. As we sat watching our daughter play, I realized something important. The cycle of abuse my parents had created was finally broken. Harper had escaped it. I had escaped it. And most importantly, Lily would never know it. That was the greatest victory of all. The confrontation with my parents at the family barbecue changed everything. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had actual support, not just from Harper and my aunt, but from the extended family who'd been kept in the dark for years. My grandmother called me the next morning, still processing everything she'd learned. "I had no idea, Mila," she said, her voice cracking. "All these years we thought you were all just private people. Your mother always made excuses for why Harper couldn't come to family events." I wasn't surprised. My parents had always been masters at controlling the narrative, but their grip was finally slipping. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. My uncle helped me find an affordable 2-bedroom apartment not far from Harper and my aunt. It wasn't fancy, but it had a small yard where Lily could play. And most importantly, it was ours. No strings attached, no manipulative parents lurking in the background. Tyler and I were still figuring things out. He'd been coming over regularly to see Lily, and we were trying to establish a co-parenting relationship that didn't completely suck. I wasn't ready to forgive him yet, but I could see he was genuinely sorry for believing my parents over me. I keep thinking about what would have happened if your aunt hadn't been there when I tried to take Lily, he admitted one evening after putting Lily to bed. I could have really messed up her life, our lives. Yeah, you could have, I said bluntly. I wasn't in the mood to make him feel better about his mistakes, but you didn't. And now you know what my parents are capable of. He nodded, looking properly ashamed. I do, and I promise I'll never let them manipulate me again. I wanted to believe him, but trust is a hard thing to rebuild once it's broken. Still, for Lily's sake, I was willing to try. My parents, meanwhile, had gone suspiciously quiet. No more surprise visits, no more legal threats, no more attempts to contact me or Harper. According to my grandmother, they'd stopped showing up at family functions too. Part of me was relieved, but another part was anxious. This didn't feel like surrender. It felt like they were regrouping. I was right to be worried. About a month after the barbecue incident, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Check your email. Urgent. I almost deleted it as spam, but something made me open my email anyway. There was a message from my dad's work account with an attachment. The subject line read, "Last chance to fix this." My stomach dropped as I opened the attachment. It was a formal-looking document, a petition for grandparents' rights, already filled out with all the details. There was also a letter, clearly written by my mom, though sent from my dad's account. "Mila, we're giving you one last opportunity to be reasonable. We can file this petition tomorrow, and with our resources, we will win. Or you can agree to our terms. Regular visitation with Lily, family counseling with Dr. Peterson, our choice, and you will publicly retract the lies you've spread about us to the family. Your choice. You have 24 hours. I forwarded the email to Vanessa immediately, my hands shaking so bad I could barely type. She called me within minutes. "This is actually good news," she said, which was not what I was expecting to hear. "How is this good news?" "They're trying to force their way back into our lives. Because they just handed us evidence of harassment and attempted coercion," Vanessa explained. "Don't respond to them. Let them file if they want to. With their history of fabricating documents and this attempt to intimidate you, no judge is going to look favorably on their petition." I wanted to believe her, but the anxiety was overwhelming. I called Harper, who came right over with our aunt. They both read the email and agreed with Vanessa. This was my parents getting desperate, not powerful. "They know they've lost control," Harper said, squeezing my hand. "The family knows the truth now. They can't manipulate everyone anymore." The 24-hour deadline came and went. I didn't respond, and true to their word, my parents filed their petition. The next few weeks were a nightmare of legal paperwork, meetings with Vanessa, and trying to keep Lily's life as normal as possible through it all. The court date was set for a preliminary hearing. I barely slept the night before, imagining all the ways my parents might try to paint me as an unfit mother. Harper stayed over, camping out on my couch and assuring me repeatedly that everything would be okay. "Remember, they don't have the power anymore," she kept saying. "We have the truth on our side." Walking into that courtroom was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My parents were already there, looking polished and respectable as always. My mom had that concerned grandmother look perfected, while my dad sat stoically beside her. They didn't even look at me when I came in. The hearing was surprisingly brief. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, reviewed the petition and then asked my parents' lawyer to present their case for why they should be granted visitation rights against my wishes. Their lawyer started spinning this tale about devoted grandparents being cruelly cut off from their beloved granddaughter due to misunderstandings and family drama. He claimed I was emotionally unstable and had a history of fabricating abuse allegations when I didn't get my way. I felt sick listening to their lies, but Vanessa just sat calmly taking notes. When it was her turn to speak, she was methodical and devastating. "Your Honor, the petitioners have demonstrated a pattern of manipulative and abusive behavior that makes them unsuitable for court-mandated visitation," she began. Then she laid it all out. The emotional abuse of Harper, kicking her out at 16, the false CPS report, the fabricated custody documents they'd given Tyler, and finally, the threatening email trying to coerce me into compliance. She submitted affidavits from Harper, my aunt, Tyler, and several extended family members who'd witnessed my parents' behavior at the barbecue. She even had a statement from Janine at CPS, confirming that the report against me had been unfounded and appeared to be retaliatory. The judge listened to it all with an increasingly stern expression. When Vanessa finished, she turned to my parents. "Is it true that you fabricated court documents claiming emergency custody of your granddaughter?" she asked directly. My parents exchanged glances and their lawyer jumped in. "Your Honor, that was a misunderstanding. My clients believed they were acting in the child's best interest, and that wasn't my question," the judge interrupted. "Did they falsify court documents? Yes or no?" The lawyer hesitated, then admitted there was a document that may have been improperly presented as a court order. "Yes." The judge's face hardened. "And the threatening email demanding compliance within 24 hours. Do you deny sending that?" My mom actually tried to speak up then. "We were just trying to avoid this exact situation, Your Honor. We wanted to resolve this privately, as a family. By threatening and intimidating your daughter?" The judge shook her head. "I've seen enough." Petition denied, but she wasn't done. "Furthermore, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order preventing the petitioners from contacting Ms. Collins or her daughter, and I'm referring the matter of the falsified court documents to the district attorney's office for investigation." My parents looked stunned. This clearly wasn't how they expected things to go. Their lawyer started to protest, but the judge cut him off. "This court will not reward manipulative behavior and attempted coercion. If your clients wish to have a relationship with their granddaughter in the future, I suggest they seek therapy and demonstrate significant changes in their behavior. Until then, this matter is closed." I walked out of that courtroom feeling like I could finally breathe again. Harper was waiting outside and practically tackled me with a hug when I told her what happened. "It's really over?" she asked, her eyes wide. "For now, at least," I said. I wasn't naive enough to think my parents would give up entirely, but this was a major victory. The next few months were the most peaceful I'd had in years. Without the constant stress of my parents' manipulation, I was finally able to focus on building a life for Lily and me. I found a part-time job that worked around Lily's preschool schedule. Harper was thriving in her psychology program and spent most weekends at my place, becoming the amazing aunt I always knew she would be. Tyler and I eventually settled into a decent co-parenting routine. He'd realized how close he'd come to destroying our family and was working hard to make amends. He never mentioned getting back together, which was good because I wasn't interested. Some betrayals you can forgive but not forget. My extended family stayed true to their word about supporting us. My grandparents set up college funds for both Lily and Harper. My uncle helped me find a better job with his company. Cousins I barely knew growing up became regular fixtures in our lives, dropping by with hand-me-down clothes for Lily or inviting us to family events. As for my parents, they seemed to have vanished from our lives completely. According to my grandmother, they'd moved to Florida, claiming they needed a fresh start away from all the family drama. They didn't face any serious legal consequences for the falsified documents, just a stern warning from the DA's office. But the family shame was punishment enough for people as image-conscious as my parents. I thought I'd feel more conflicted about the total break, but honestly, life was better without them. Lily was happier, I was happier, and even Harper seemed to finally be healing from all those years of abuse. About 6 months after the court hearing, I got a plain white envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a check for $10,000 and a note in my dad's handwriting, for Lily's future, no strings attached. I stared at it for a long time, trying to figure out if this was another manipulation tactic or something else. In the end, I decided to deposit the money into Lily's college fund, not because I forgave them, but because Lily deserved every advantage I could give her. If my parents wanted to contribute financially from a distance, fine, but they'd lost the right to be in our lives. One evening, as Harper and I sat watching Lily chase fireflies in the backyard of my new rental house, Harper asked me a question I'd been avoiding. Do you think we'll ever talk to them again? Mom and Dad, I mean. I thought about it carefully. I don't know. Maybe someday, if they get help and really change. But I'm not holding my breath. Harper nodded, looking relieved. Me neither. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't the only one who wasn't ready to forgive them. You're definitely not alone, I assured her. Whatever happens with them, we have each other now. And Lily, that's what matters. As if on cue, Lily ran over with her hands cupped together. Look, Mommy, I caught one. She opened her hand slightly to reveal the gentle glow of a firefly. Her face was lit up with wonder, completely untouched by the kind of fear and anxiety that had defined my own childhood. That was my real victory, breaking the cycle, making sure the damage stopped with me and Harper. The firefly flickered in Lily's small hands before she carefully released it back into the evening air. Bye-bye, lightning bug. Come back soon, she called after it. Harper laughed and scooped her up for a twirl. You're getting so big, Lilybug. Soon you'll be catching stars. Watching them together, I felt something I hadn't experienced much in my life. Contentment. Not perfect happiness. Life was still complicated and messy, but a deep sense that we were exactly where we needed to be. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Still okay if I take Lily to the zoo tomorrow? I texted back a quick, yes, she's excited, and put my phone away. The future would have its own challenges, but for the first time, I was facing them on my terms, not my parents', and that made all the difference.